The signal. The detection came at 03:47 hours, and it changed everything. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the UNSC Pathfinder, staring at the data streams flooding across the holographic display. The ship had been conducting routine, deep space surveys in the Kepler 442 system when the sensors picked up something impossible. A structured electromagnetic pulse originating from the fourth planet. "Commander, we're certain now," said Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, the ship's communications officer. His voice carried a tremor of excitement mixed with fear. "This isn't natural. The pattern repeats every 47 seconds. Mathematical progression. Prime numbers." Sarah nodded slowly, her mind racing through protocols that had been theoretical until this moment. In 200 years of space exploration, humanity had found microbial life, ancient fossils, and promising biosignatures. But never this. Never a signal that screamed intelligence. "How long until we're in orbit?" she asked. 16 hours at current velocity," replied Navigator Chen. "No relation, though they joked about it. We could push the engines harder." "No. We approach carefully. Standard protocols." Sarah turned to face her crew. 23 men and women who had signed up for survey work, not first contact. "This is what we trained for. Every simulation, every drill. We follow procedure exactly." The Pathfinder was a research vessel, not a warship. It carried defensive systems, but its primary weapons were sensors, laboratories, and one of humanity's most advanced AI systems for linguistic analysis. If this signal was what they all suspected, those tools would matter more than missiles. As the ship adjusted course, Sarah retreated to her ready room and initiated a priority transmission back to Earth. At this distance, the message would take 9 hours to arrive. By the time command responded, they'd already be in orbit. She was alone out here, and the weight of that responsibility settled onto her shoulders like lead. The hours crawled by. The crew worked in focused silence, running every diagnostic, checking every system, preparing every possible scenario. The signal continued its steady pulse, unchanging, patient, waiting. Dr. Amara Okonkwo, the ship's xenobiologist, brought her preliminary analysis to the bridge. The signal's origin is definitely the planet's surface. Equatorial region, approximately 600 kilometers from what looks like a substantial water source. The atmosphere is breathable, nitrogen-oxygen mix, similar to Earth. Temperature ranges are within human tolerance. Life signs? Sarah asked. Inconclusive. The planet's ionosphere is creating interference. We'll need to get closer, maybe send down probes. Sarah studied the planet growing larger on the viewscreen. It was beautiful. Swirls of blue and green, white clouds drifting across continents. It looked so much like Earth that her chest tightened. "Commander," Rodriguez called out, his voice sharp. The signal just changed. Every head on the bridge turned. The steady pulse that had repeated for hours suddenly shifted. New patterns emerged, more complex, layered with harmonics. "They know we're here," whispered Navigator Chen. Sarah stepped forward, her hands gripping the railing. "Rodriguez, can we respond?" "Yes, ma'am. We have the transmission arrays ready." "Then let's introduce ourselves." The next hour became a careful dance of mathematics. Humanity's first conversation with another intelligence consisted of prime numbers, basic arithmetic progressions, and simple geometric shapes encoded in radio waves. The responses came back quickly, each one building on the last. Whoever, or whatever, was down there understood mathematics the same way humans did. Some things, it seemed, were universal. They're sending something new, Rodriguez said, his fingers flying across his console. I think it's an invitation, a set of coordinates. Sarah felt her heart hammering. This was it. The moment that would define not just her career, but potentially the future of human civilization. Assemble the landing team, she ordered. Full protective gear, but minimal weapons. Science equipment takes priority. We're going down there, and we're going to do this right. As the crew scrambled to prepare, Sarah took one last look at the planet below. Somewhere down there, another intelligence waited. Another civilization that had looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. Now, both species had their answer. The Pathfinder's shuttle bay opened, and the small craft descended toward the coordinates, carrying 6 humans into the unknown. Sarah sat in the pilot's seat, hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Whatever happened next would echo through history. Humanity's first contact with alien intelligence, not through war or conquest, but through curiosity, mathematics, and the simple desire to understand. The shuttle broke through the clouds, and the landing site came into view. Sarah's breath caught. Waiting below was something humanity had never imagined. The architects. The landing site was a plateau of smooth stone that seemed too perfect to be natural. As the shuttle's engines powered down, Sarah and her team stared through the viewport at what awaited them. Structures rose from the plateau's surface, not buildings in any conventional sense, but crystalline formations that pulsed with soft blue light. They formed a circle around a central platform, and the mathematical precision of their arrangement was unmistakable. Each structure stood exactly the same distance from its neighbors, creating a perfect geometric pattern. Atmospheric readings confirm breathable air, Dr. Okonkwo reported, checking her instruments for the 3rd time. Temperature is 22 degrees Celsius. No biological contaminants detected. No radiation above background levels. Sarah studied the scene carefully. Where are they? We've been transmitting our arrival for the past 30 minutes. Maybe they're waiting for us to make the first move, suggested Dr. James Park, the team's physicist. A test of intentions. Sarah made her decision. Helmets stay on until we're certain about the atmosphere, but weapons remain in the shuttle. Park, Okonkwo, Rodriguez, you're with me. Chen and Martinez, you stay with the shuttle and maintain communications with the Pathfinder. The boarding ramp descended with a mechanical hiss, and Sarah took humanity's first steps onto an alien world inhabited by intelligent life. The stone beneath her boots felt solid, almost warm. The air, filtered through her helmet systems, carried a faint metallic scent that the scrubbers couldn't quite eliminate. They walked toward the central platform, movements slow and deliberate. Every step was recorded by a dozen cameras. Every breath documented for history. As they reached the circle's center, the crystalline structures began to glow brighter. The pulse of light accelerated, creating patterns that danced across the stone. Then, from the largest structure, something emerged. It wasn't what Sarah expected. No gray aliens with large eyes. No tentacled creatures or insectoid forms. What appeared before them was something that defied easy description. A being composed of what looked like liquid light. Constantly shifting. Never holding a single form for more than a moment. It stood roughly human. Height but seemed to exist slightly out of phase with normal space. Its edges blurring and reforming. Contact. Sarah whispered. Her voice transmitted automatically to the Pathfinder. We have visual contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. The being moved forward. Or perhaps the space between them simply shortened. Sarah couldn't tell. It raised what might have been an appendage. And suddenly, the air between them shimmered. A holographic display materialized, showing mathematical equations that scrolled past at incredible speed. Dr. Park gasped. Those are quantum field equations. Advanced theoretical physics. They're showing us their understanding of fundamental forces. The equation stopped, replaced by images. A planet, this planet, as it had been millions of years ago. Oceans teeming with life. Then the images shifted, showing the rise of civilization, the development of technology, the reaching toward the stars. But then came something darker. Another species appeared in the images, arriving from deep space. The scenes that followed showed conflict, destruction, and ultimately, a desperate choice. The original inhabitants of this world had transformed themselves, abandoning physical form to become beings of pure energy, hiding in crystalline structures that could survive eons. They're refugees, Dr. Okonkwo said softly. They transformed themselves to escape extinction. The being pulsed with brighter light, and new images appeared. Ships, massive vessels that looked like they'd been grown rather than built. The enemies that had forced this transformation. And then, a warning. Those same ships, still out there, still hunting, still consuming worlds. Sarah felt ice form in her stomach. Are they asking for help? Or warning us? The hologram shifted again, showing Earth. Then it showed human ships spreading outward into the galaxy, moving through space with primitive, but determined technology. The being highlighted humanity's vessels, then showed those predatory ships again. The message was clear. Humanity was on a collision course with something ancient and terrible. Rodriguez stepped forward, his voice tight. Commander, this could be a trap. How do we know any of this is real? Sarah considered his words carefully. Trust was the most dangerous thing to offer in first contact. But fear was perhaps even more dangerous. She removed her helmet. Commander. No. Docker. Okonkwo shouted. The air was cool and crisp, filled with that metallic tang she'd smelled through the filters. Sarah took a deep breath, and nothing happened. She didn't collapse. The atmosphere was exactly what the sensors had promised. We came here in peace, Sarah said, knowing the being couldn't understand her words, but hoping it would understand her actions. We came to learn, not to conquer. If what you've shown us is true, then humanity needs to know. We need to prepare. The being of light pulsed, and suddenly Sarah felt something brush against her mind. Not painful, but startling. Images flooded her consciousness. Not just pictures, but knowledge. Understanding, The being was called Varane, one of thousands who had survived the transformation. Their civilization, the architects, had once spanned dozens of star systems. They had built wonders that made human technology look like children's toys. And they had been nearly destroyed by something that called itself the consumption. A hive intelligence that devoured organic life and converted entire planets into raw material for its expansion. The architects had been watching humanity's development for centuries, waiting to see if these new arrivals in the galaxy would be different, waiting to see if humanity would be allies or simply more prey for the consumption. Sarah gasped as the contact ended, stumbling backward. "Doctor." Park caught her arm. "I understand now," she said, her voice shaking. "They've been alone for so long, hiding, waiting. They need to know if we're worth saving." The being, Varane, pulsed again, and the hologram showed something new. A device, crystalline like the structures around them, but smaller. Portable. It rotated slowly in the display, and Sarah understood its purpose instantly. It was a communicator, a translator, a gift, and it was a choice. Take it, and humanity would gain knowledge that could save them from the consumption. Take it, and humanity would also become responsible for helping the architects reclaim what they'd lost. Sarah looked at her team. Rodriguez looked skeptical. Dr. Park was calculating probabilities. Dr. Okonkwo had tears in her eyes. "We didn't come out here to turn away from the truth," Sarah said. "Whatever that truth is." She stepped forward and reached for the crystalline device. The moment her fingers touched it, everything changed. The awakening. The crystalline device felt warm in Sarah's hands, pulsing with rhythmic light that matched her heartbeat. The moment she made contact, information flooded her mind, not overwhelming, but deliberate, like someone carefully pouring water into a glass. Language structures, mathematical principles, star charts showing sectors of space humanity had never explored. And threading through it all, a history of war that spanned millennia. "Commander." "Doctor." Okonkwo's voice seemed distant, though she stood right beside her. "Your neural patterns are spiking. The device is interfacing directly with your brain." Sarah blinked, and suddenly she could see more than before. The landscape around them revealed hidden layers, energy fields connecting the crystalline structures, data streams flowing beneath the stone plateau, and, in the distance, buried deep underground, massive machinery still functioning after millions of years. "I'm fine," Sarah said, and realized she understood Varane now. The being of light hadn't spoken, but she comprehended its presence like reading body language. It was curious about her, cautious, but also desperately hopeful. Varane pulsed, and more information came through the device. The architects had seeded this galaxy with warning beacons, hidden bases, and weapon caches. They had prepared for the possibility that someday another civilization might rise and need these tools to survive the consumption. But there was a problem. The architects had transformed themselves to escape extinction. But in doing so, they had lost something crucial: the ability to interact with physical matter in meaningful ways. They could think, observe, and store knowledge, but they couldn't build, couldn't fight, couldn't reclaim what they'd lost. They needed hands, bodies, physical beings who could act in the material world. They needed humanity. "This is insane," Rodriguez said, watching Sarah communicate silently with Varane. "We have no way to verify anything they're telling us. This could all be manipulation." Dr. Park nodded slowly. "He's right, Commander. We're taking enormous risks based on information we can't independently confirm." Sarah turned to face them, the device still glowing in her hands. "You're both correct to be skeptical. That's good science. But look at what's in front of us." She gestured at the crystalline structures, at Varane's shimmering form. "This technology is centuries beyond ours. If the architects wanted to harm us, they could have done it already. They made themselves vulnerable by revealing their existence. Or they're betting we'll do exactly what you're doing. Trust them because they seem helpless." Rodriguez countered. Sarah felt Varane's reaction through the device, not anger at Rodriguez's suspicion, but understanding. The being had lived through betrayal before. It knew the value of doubt. Through the crystalline communicator, Sarah sent a simple request. "Prove it. Show us something we can verify." Varane pulsed brightly, and the holographic display shifted. It showed coordinates in space, relatively close by astronomical standards, only 15 light years away. A derelict station orbited a dead star, one of the architect's ancient outposts. The station contained technology, records, and most importantly, an inactive weapons platform that humanity could study. The Pathfinder could reach that location in 6 weeks. Dr. Park said, studying the coordinates. "If we verify the station exists and contains what they claim, that would be significant evidence." Sarah nodded. "We do this carefully, methodically. We verify everything before we commit humanity to any course of action." She looked at Varane. "But we also don't waste time. If the consumption is real, if it's coming to this part of the galaxy, then every day we delay could cost lives." Varane responded by creating another hologram, this one showing a timeline. The consumption moved slowly by cosmic standards, but inexorably. Its scout ships had been detected in neighboring star systems. Based on their pattern of expansion, they would reach human-controlled space in approximately 200 years. 2 centuries. Dr. Okonkwo said. "That's actually a lot of time. Why the urgency?" The hologram shifted again, showing something that made Sarah's blood run cold. The consumption didn't just arrive and attack. It sent infiltrators first, microscopic machines that could replicate using any carbon-based matter. They spread through a civilization's infrastructure over decades, hidden, growing, waiting. When the main fleet arrived, the infiltrators activated, and resistance became nearly impossible. "They're already here," Sarah whispered. "Aren't they?" Varane's confirmation came through as pure certainty. Consumption infiltrators had reached human space approximately 40 years ago, likely arriving on meteorites or captured comets. They were dormant now, spreading slowly, waiting for their population to reach critical mass. Humanity had 2 centuries before the main fleet arrived, but perhaps only decades before the infiltrators activated. Rodriguez's skepticism cracked. "If that's true, we need to warn Earth immediately. Every colony, every station, every ship needs to begin scanning for these things." "And how do we explain where we got this information?" Dr. Park asked. Command will demand proof. They'll want to study the architects, verify every claim. That process could take years while these infiltrators spread. Sarah felt the weight of command pressing down on her again, heavier than before. She was one person, in command of one ship, making decisions that affected all of humanity's future. Through the device, she felt Varaine's emotion. It wasn't quite empathy, but something close. The architects had faced similar choices once, long ago. They had hesitated, debated, tried to verify everything before acting. They had lost entire worlds because of that caution. We split our approach. Sarah decided. The Pathfinder goes to the derelict station to verify the architect's claims. Meanwhile, we send a priority transmission to Earth, explaining what we've found, including the threat of infiltrators. We give command all our data and let them decide how to proceed. And the device? Dr. Okonkwo asked, looking at the glowing crystal in Sarah's hands. It comes with us. If it's really a translator and information source, humanity will need it to communicate with the architects and understand their technology. Varaine pulsed with what Sarah interpreted as approval. The being gestured toward the other crystalline structures around the plateau. More devices emerged from them, 6 in total, each one pulsing with the same rhythm as the first. One for each of us, Dr. Park said quietly. They're distributing the knowledge, making sure that if something happens to one person, the information survives. Sarah distributed the devices to her team. Each one bonded with its holder, creating an instant connection. She watched her crew members, expressions change as they accessed the information. Wonder, fear, determination, all flickering across their faces. This changes everything, Dr. Okonkwo said, staring at the device in her hands. Not just military technology, but medicine, engineering, energy generation. The architects are giving us centuries of advancement. At what cost? Rodriguez asked. What do they expect in return? Through the device, Sarah felt Varaine's answer: survival. The architects wanted to survive, to eventually reclaim physical form, to rebuild what they had lost. But they also wanted revenge. They wanted the consumption destroyed, eliminated, prevented from devouring another civilization. And they believed humanity, violent, resilient, innovative humanity, might be capable of doing what the architects themselves could not. Sarah looked up at the sky, where the Pathfinder orbited invisibly beyond the clouds. In a few hours, they would return to the ship and set course for the derelict station. In a few days, her report would reach Earth and change human civilization forever. Let's go, she said to her team. We have work to do. As they walked back toward the shuttle, Varaine and the other architect survivors watched from their crystalline structures. For the first time in millions of years, they felt something they had almost forgotten.